He was a loser, and she knew it. But you sure couldn't tell me that. I had to learn for myself. God damn, Natalie. A loser? You know how bad a nigga got to be for a bitch to call a ninja a loser? Damn! Oh, my life, be waiting for you. Look how you do. Fischer was a blast from the past. I met him back in 1976 when I was performing at the Tokyo Music Festival. At the time, he was the music director and drummer for Rufus and Shaka Khan. He was the drummer on those great early songs she did. He had asked me out back then, but since I was head over heels involved with Marvin, I declined. But this was about music, not about romance, so I gave her the number, and he called. He was very nice over the phone, and I arranged to meet him in the parking lot of a film studio where he had a recording studio inside a trailer. Despite the fact that he no longer sported his outsized afro, I still recognized his handsome face. Andre was somewhat larger than he'd been in Tokyo. He now weighed about 250 pounds, and he was wearing a houndstooth jacket and some black pants. It turned out that the music he wanted me to listen to was really beside the point. After all those years, he wanted to ask me out again. "Would you like to go out to dinner?" he asked. "Sure," I said. "Why don't you give me a call after 6 on Sunday?" That Sunday was to be my last Sunday of fasting, but the phone never rang, and I didn't see him for about a month. In November, I went to an awards show with my son and a friend, and I saw him in the parking lot. The white tuxedo jacket was a much better look for him than the houndstooth. But even though he looked nice, I was angry. Yeah, because he playing games. Ain't nobody got time to chase you, nigga. Let me tell you something. Right quick. So I got some young girls at work, right? And she got a little special friend. I think they are the sweetest thing. You hear me? I mean, so sweet, because he is smitten with her and she is smitten with him. Okay? And she was in her feelings because he didn't come past to see her. He was in the building, but he didn't come to say hello to her. And I said, "Baby, don't take it personal, because some men, when they having a bad day, they don't know how to function. Some men can't be loving and have a bad day at the same time. Sometimes when men money ain't right, that child support didn't garnish their check and they expect for it to happen. Something could happen to their car. When things are not going right for some men, they can't handle it. They not like us. They don't know how to break a leg and still get up and walk to work. They not like us. So don't take it to heart. He might have just been having a bad day." Sure enough, the next day he was there being super sweet to her. I called him over and I cussed him out right there in the parking lot. "What do you think? That I have all my life to wait for you to pick up a phone? You said you'd call and you didn't. You don't have any manners and you're rude." I just went off on him and he was mortified, but I didn't care. "Well," he said, "the reason I didn't call you was that your manager found out that I had given you some material, and he said I had to go through him to deal with you." "BS," I replied. "My manager doesn't tell me what to do." Dan had a sense of foreboding about Andre and didn't want me to get involved with him. In hindsight, I should have listened to Dan Hooking up with Andre would be one of the biggest mistakes I ever made. He called again a couple of weeks later and invited me to his birthday party the day after Christmas. A couple of weeks later, foreshadowing, girl, I'm telling you, he one of them ninjas that if his mind ain't right, he cannot handle problems and be in a relationship at the same time. He can't do it. I couldn't do it because I was working at Caesars in Vegas. He ended up coming to see me there and he brought his kids. After one show, he came backstage to say hello, gave me a kiss on the cheek and left. In January 1989, I was playing at Harrah's in Lake Tahoe, and he came with his children to see the show. They walked into my dressing room all bubbly. Liz was 7 and Kyle was 5 and proceeded to make themselves at home. Not in my motherfucking dressing room. Red flag. They were all bundled up because it was cold. They were really beautiful kids. They were just precious, and I liked them right away. Andre was clearly very proud of them. I invited them back to the house the next day, and Andre asked if he could play some music for me. The fuck? You want to date or you want to make music? I'm confused. The house I invited them back to was Bill Harrah's, where I was staying. It was a lovely and huge 60,000 square feet with only 3 bedrooms. I could never figure that out. Robbie had come up with me and the two of us just rattled around in it. Liz and Kyle immediately hit it off with Robbie, and they all went to play in the snow. Andre stayed indoors with me. He sat there with his overcoat on for 2 hours. What? That is weird as fuck, girl. He didn't take his coat off? Girl, that is telling. Something weird about that. What you want to take your coat off for? And why the fuck every time you come see me, you with your kids? Like he trying to keep a distance between the two of them. It's very weird. He sat there with his overcoat on for 2 hours. Just looking at him made me uncomfortable. I made some hot chocolate and tried to coax him out of his coat. The next day I had a little party and they all came back again. And I remember that at one point we were all sitting around on the floor and I found myself sitting very close to Andre and we were very comfortable. I thought that was really neat. And when he left, he gave me a kiss on the forehead. I was smitten. Girl, he don't like you. What's that saying? He just not that into you, girl. The man moved very fast. When I got back to LA, Andre and I started dating, and it wasn't much more than a month later that he asked me to marry him. Girl, he wanted you to put the car insurance in your name, girl. Oh my God, girl. But you don't know till you know. At 3 o'clock in the morning on February 10th, 1989, Andre proposed to me. It ain't looking good, girl. He also successfully convinced my family that he was the guy. They were concerned about whether he would be able to handle being Mr. Cole if it came to that. And the fact that sometimes I would be out on the road a lot. Andre reassured them that he knew about being on the road, being a star, and being a celebrity, and he was certain he could handle it. Answer no. Girl, answer no. It was no big deal because he'd been on the road and he'd been a star in his own right with Rufus. I saw it as a big plus that he knew and understood my industry so well. In fact, Andre and I had even started working together at this point. Girl, girl. He is using you. Niggas, if they can't use you, they don't want you. And right about now, Natalie Cole is usable because she is on her way back to the top, or she's sitting there on the top, or getting ready to go to the mountaintop because she ain't even done Unforgettable yet. He set the wedding date for September 17th, 1989. The ceremony took place at my church, Bethany Baptist, and we were married by my pastor, the Reverend Roselia Johnson. My Uncle Freddie played in our first dance was to function at the junction. Our reception followed at the venerable old Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. It was a beautiful wedding, and that night everybody but my mother was smiling and happy, especially me. But this was one of those times when my mother's instinct was dead on. Compared to Andre, my mother adored Marvin. I think she saw through Andre's facade from the moment she met him. He was a loser, and she knew it. But you sure couldn't tell me that. I had to learn for myself. God damn, Natalie. A loser? You know how bad a nigga got to be for a bitch to call a ninja a loser? My marriage to Andre Fischer signaled an upswing in my life in many ways, or so I thought. This marriage meant Robbie would now have a father in his life, and for me, it marked the end of the long, difficult 5-year recovery period after Hazleton. It also meant that finally I would have someone with whom to share my personal life and my career. Girl, and that puss. Okay, because that's a flaky motherfucker. My last album with EMI, Good to Be Back, sold well, but it hadn't done half as well as Everlasting. Personally, I had not been happy with the choice of songs. I think that with Everlasting, the record company was worried that I was becoming too pop, and that black radio had not heard enough from Natalie Cole on recent records. Pink Cadillac and I Live for Your Love had been pop hits, not R&B hits. And Dan was getting nervous that black radio was going to put me out to pasture because I was a black artist who wasn't delivering any black music to R&B radio. Oh, that's what Whitney Houston had to deal with. Remember they was mad at the Whitney because she was pop? I mean, hell, some of her songs was R&B. Was that? I don't know, but they was mad at Whitney because they didn't feel Whitney was black enough. No, Whitney was, let me get to the money. You know she fucked around with the Clive Davis, and Clive ain't got time to be limited to just one color. The only color he care about is the green, okay? Not you black bitches. Ultimately, EMI let me out of my contract, not necessarily because they didn't want to do Dad's music. They were just ready to be relieved of the responsibility of trying to figure out how to market me. Once we were out of that contract, Dan and I went to see Bob Krasnow, the president and founder of Elektra Records, to see if he would be interested in signing me. Their roster was a mix of many different artists, producing all kinds of different music. It was a very eclectic label and had the reputation of being run by folks who really knew what they were doing. Bob was a risk taker. He spearheaded the company, and the artists felt that if Bob was in charge, it was going to be okay because he was behind you and was very much of a hands-on kind of guy. He was also a tyrant, but who cares? He knew where to go. He knew how to get to the interest, and he knew how to sell records. He had a vision, and he was the next angel in my life. At the time that we visited Bob, he was in the hospital. I remember him sitting up in his hospital bed. He was recovering from hip surgery, but he had agreed to meet with us. I said, I've got some songs in the works for a pop record, and then after that, I'd like to consider doing an album of my father's music. I could never have predicted his response. He said, screw that pop record. Let's do this record right now. Meaning, fuck that shit you talking. We get ready to do your daddy's music. Do you know how much money that's going to make us? Girl, are you crazy? The basic concept was to do a tribute album of Dad's greatest hits. That's really all it was. Everyone wanted to call it Unforgettable from the beginning, and I wanted to add with love. I wanted this album to be from me to my dad, a personal gift. I was thinking about it from the emotional place of a little girl who was getting a chance to do something for her father, as well as a chance to say, I love you. With the song selected and the record company sufficiently subdued, it was time to get started. We began recording in Studio A at Capitol, the very same studio in which Dad had done Unforgettable 40 years earlier. It had taken me 15 years to feel ready to make this album and to carry my father's name in a gracious manner that reflected the stature he had achieved. I knew that there was a responsibility involved and that I could not fail. One characteristic of classic songs like those on the Unforgettable album was that back in the 1930s and 1940s, almost every song had an instrumental break. If it is particularly long, oh well, I just have to take a drink of water. I loved these songs because they were so poetic. The biggest challenge was how we were going to do the song Unforgettable, since we were going to be blending my voice with Dad's old recordings. Yo, I thought this was so cute, girl. I thought this was so cute. It wasn't until David and I sat down to go over it that he discovered that this was supposed to be a duet. I had said to him, okay, so now I sing this part. And he said, well, who's singing the other part? When I told him it was going to be my father, he told me that it was at that moment that he knew we were going to be doing something great, that we were going to be making history. To locate Dad's original recording, David had to go out to some storage vault. They walked down a long corridor with tapes lining the walls, and then he stopped and said, aha, there it is. He pulled the master to Unforgettable down off the shelf, blew on it, and all this dust came off. Unforgettable was released on May 28, 1991, just in time for Father's Day. It was my hope that in some way I could offer my father's memory something in return for the many gifts he had given me. That had been my original intention with Unforgettable. So it was with great joy that I began to see articles in newspapers and magazines expressing ideas such as Natalie Cole's Unforgettable has brought renewed focus to her father's often overlooked legacy. By October of 1991, the album had reached the #1 position on both the pop and jazz charts, and sales had gone over the 2 million mark. It was a remarkable moment in pop music history, really a phenomenon. Throughout November until December 11th, we continued the breakneck pace, giving 27 more concerts before breaking for Christmas. Not long before that, Elektra had decided I should do a Christmas single, my dad's Christmas song, sometimes known as Chestnut Roasting on an Open Fire. This song was originally written and performed by Mel Torme, but Dad's version had become the standard. Elektra wanted to do a boxed set for Christmas, which would include the album, this single, and the video. I was not expecting the Christmas song to be an even more emotional experience than recording Unforgettable. The holiday was actually a wonderful one for me. Although my mother and brother and sisters were now scattered, it was difficult for us all to be together. I had my own family now with Robbie and Andre and his 2 children. Wait a minute, now you a stepmommy? Girl, he got you taking care of him and the children. While the Christmas season provided something of a break, January brought a whole new round of excitement. The biggest thrill came on January 8th when the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences announced that we had been nominated for a total of 9 Grammy Awards for Unforgettable. A few nights before the Grammy Awards, I was already in New York. I was early for a couple of reasons. The first was to go to Clive Davis's Arista Records party. Ready for glory.